my process for getting set up to be thinking, I'm switching on that webcam. Strange one. It's like a fire-up sequence. And today it started with a headline. And it's the thing is with headlines, it's like don't take no notice of the headline, but the headline has an effect, doesn't it? When the headline is a deliberate thing to get the attention. It's like, how good are you at writing headlines? And how's this? Whoopi Goldberg fumes at UK for running roughshod over India. In fresh calls for slavery apology from royal family. And then this word came to me. And it's a word that you hear used and has a definition, but I've got my own definition of it. And that is blowhard. And you know, blowhard, I discovered the word blowhard in a joke where, remember being involved in bands and musicians, you get people turn up with trumpets, and you get people turn up with trombones, and you get people turn up with flutes. And when everyone's playing and they're all amped up, and if those pipes, horns, if they're not amped up too, they sound real quiet. And the first instinct of the fool is to say, can't you just blow it harder? And think he's right. I don't understand why you can't blow harder and that instrument be louder. And the trumpeter says, I'm playing the instrument, not blowing it. You fucking blowhard. Because blowhard is something that gets asked of musicians who play wind instruments. Can you not just blow it a bit harder? From those who are ignorant to the instrument or the craft. Blind, ignorant. Can you just blow it harder? Says Whoopi Goldberg as she fumes at UK for running roughshod over India in fresh calls for slavery apology from royal family. Right. Ain't that a thing? It's like, how much do you think Whoopi knows about India? She may have been, but how much do you think she knows about how it came to be as it is in the modern world and has been for the last several hundred? And that be a relatively stable place for people to live. How long do you think it's been that? How's that a thing? Now, it's easy to look at India and say, oh, white man came across the sea. He brought us pain and misery. Bit of Run to the Hills. That's a terribly disingenuous song. It's a story told with incredible bias as to where it lacks a little nuance, as to where it's like, one day people will discover Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden and say, is there people out there who believe this because they don't know any better? This song, white men came across the sea. Well, it's a bit oversimplified and doesn't actually fit the situation in India at all. Now, not wanting to try and lay on a history lesson or come across as, hey, I'm a super expert on this topic. But because I live in a part of the world where you'll hear Run to the Hills from people who come from places like Pakistan quite a lot, right? It's always been in my interest to talk to people around here when that subject comes up, and it'd be like, what do you know? So you get to talk to Kashmiris and they'll tell you a tale. And then you'll get to talk to Pakistanis and they'll tell you a tale. And then you get to speak to Indians and they'll tell you a tale, but will be far better educated and more articulate in how they tell it. Excuse me, it's like, yeah, it's a funny old thing. It's like you can talk, I know a good few guys who are Indian. I've known loads of them. And it's like, okay, so what's the score with you? Oh, I've got a university degree in computer science. And to be into rap, heavily into like rap music as to where it's almost an addiction to them. And you're like, what, intellectual guys, sharp. It's like, oh, Indian guys, okay. And then it'd be a matter of, well, you see, what do your parents do? My mother's a lawyer and my father's a doctor. What does your dad do? He owns 6 off licenses. Oh. What does your mum do? She stays at home. So it's like, one thing in common I find amongst Indian people that I've known is that they ain't working class, poor, downtrodden. And I see across the board of those guys, is to say, you were not just a well-educated person who's fairly grounded in what we would call a good family, but your father was the same, and grandfather and great-grandfather, and then you get to understand this sort of caste system in India, which Gandhi brought back, you know, where that's the most racist place in the world. I did once where, right, Indian fellow, very humble, wearing the old, you know, turns up at my workplace. And he's come to buy some printer cartridges, but you know, he's got the old frock on. Turns up, Indian fella. And I'm coming through from the canteen with my mate. He's an Indian guy who's like 6'4", he's a big lad, Anish. I used to like Anish a lot. He's a very kind man, Anish, good lad. And this Indian fellow copped a look at him. And 1,000 pleasantries, sir. And he has to be right about it, and he has to reciprocate. So the guy gives him the old master, and he goes, you know, and he's right. And he's not like funny about it. He reciprocates it because that's tradition. And it's like, well, what's the score with that? It's like, yeah, my tribe is an elite tribe. My caste is a kind of elite caste. My family and family name, it's like, it goes ahead of me. It's like, he's someone who's only got he's got a short name for an Indian guy, and it's a matter of, well, there's a reason it's a short name, because we like to get that word in there that says we're a connected family. By the old system that existed before the British ever arrived. And it's, in some degrees, they have their own flavour of the old samurai class system, but nothing quite so martial. But they've got their own pecking order, their own set of, where it's organised itself into castes. It's organised itself into working class, middle class, upper class. the British have walked into there and recognised it as to say, okay, hey, you're the bosses, you're the administrators, and you're the workers. And we did not impose that upon them. That's how it was when it was that we arrived. They had a caste system. And by this caste system, that was by way of like distribution of resources, and included that being education. So the untouchable working class, who were all right for moving things around in a world where it's moving things around was pretty much half of the work, which it still is, but we have, you know, petrol and diesel, don't we? Well, there it was that. And not wanting to go into like 100 different nuances. The British were the best thing that ever happened to the Indians. Why is that then? Because of the Mughal Empire. Who are they? Ah, right. Have you ever seen a film called Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? And you'll say, yes, John, but that's a fantasy sort of science fiction movie. No, it's not. Not really. It's a story worth telling. It's a shortened or out of place or moved in time tale of the Englishman, the American, Indiana Jones, finding a scene of horror, having arrived in India. And he arrives from the sky. Literally, doesn't he? On a rubber dinghy. And he arrives in this place, and these people are absolutely fucked. They've been half burnt to the ground. Their crops have been stolen. Their everything's been burned. And they've had all their children taken from them. That's what the Mughals used to do. They used to come round and they used to do that. And they didn't used to do that very often, but you only have to do that once every 20 years to make sure there's a certain order of things. You'd take your children and they would enslave your children. And your children would return as the next group of raiders 20 years later and steal some more. It's like you just go and read about the history of raids by the Mughals into India, and it'd be a matter of you ain't seen or heard out like that as to Delhi just burnt to the ground, raided, people hiding, running for their lives. Like they're a set of bastards, a slave cult, and it's ostensibly all in the name of Allah. They were a radical gang who'd weaponized Islam as a way of, what's the word? Of the ends justifying the means. It's like they were a dangerous cult. Who sorted them out? You can go and read about it. The British Empire versus the Mughals. Who do you think fucking won that one? And it not take all the manpower in the world to do it. Because British turn up and it's like, oh, alright. Okay. It would be beneficial for us to protect you. How would you like to be a protectorate of the British Empire, which is what India was? We gave ourselves and maintained good faith in protecting India from raiders, rapers, marauders. Succeeded. Wiped those fuckers out. trained and recruited the locals, and it'd be like, we take peasant, turn him into soldier. We don't need to, this is the magic. They've killed all our warriors. Okay, your warriors, they were like, what were they? Like guys who trained their entire lives with shield and spear, and you spent a lot of money on these warriors, didn't you? They were, and hard to come by as well, good ones. Like, only like 1 in 10 of your young lads are really born to be fucking good at it. Well, I'll tell you what. We can train any man into a soldier in 12 months, and he'd be an effective warrior. Because we've got like Lee Enfield rifles. Which was always the trick, you know. It's like when they invented them, like when they ever invented like really good crossbows, they're like, nah, we can teach anyone to use these. We don't need these archers who've been at it all their lives. They want too much money and they don't like to work. Well, these crossbows, we can just conscript a load of unemployed people to fire these. So you turn up with an army like that and get yourself thrown up against a native horde of warriors, and it's like, okay, we did battle with them, and we killed, there was 400 of us and there was 2,000 of them. We lost 50 guys, and we killed every last fucking one of them. Now, if all of the British soldiers have been lost, or maybe those 50 they lost, it's like they can get 50 more. They can put them, send them to the academy, send them through the training program. Replacements have arrived, sir. Very good. These guys are up against, you kill their warriors, you have to wait for their sons to come of age and seek revenge, don't you? And it's a matter of, go look. We just killed the whole fucking lot of you men who are capable of fighting it in a gun battle. We just destroyed them. Now, what do you do from there? And the answer is, something like the Mongol Empire, they collapse when their muscle has been destroyed. Run for your lives, who are you? Gone. You'll no longer be having a problem with those people. We've taken their territory and fortified it. We've built a military camp. We now control it with our horses and our optics and our rifles. This is now a safe place to do business. You'll always get the odd gang of marauders and bandits, but we're quite happy to track them down just too. That's kind of the basis of what our empire is. Small numbers and men on horse, special forces, that's what we do. It's like we're really good at that. That's the basis of our power, is ability to keep law and order and put down partisans and the like. It's like you can look back in history and see there were a time when the British were responsible for the security of what was South Vietnam. And the British didn't have so much trouble with the VC. And it weren't that they were friendlier towards the British, it's that the British were better at fighting them. Why? Well, they'd been fighting in Burma, and it's like, compared to those Japanese, these VC they ain't shit. It's like we stood our own against Japanese over there. We learned how to deal with them. Well, these guys are fuck all compared to those crazy fools. It's like police action, anti-partisan, that's the basis on which there's a British Empire. Hunting down bandits. So it's like, there's a case to be said that India needs to thank the British royal family for all the money spent by the taxpayer and through the tariffs and revenues of the successful win-win situation that emerged between England, Britain and India. Everybody made out on that. There are those that didn't and there are those that did, but that's the nature of the world. and how trade works. But it's trade that's made India prosperous. It'd be a rich place by way of resources, but it's a matter of the British with its navy, the East India Company and the like. They give you consumers, access to consumers. It's okay having all the shoes in the world, but if you've got no customers, the British turn up and say, oh, you've got a good few pair of shoes there, haven't you? Cheap. Yeah, we'll buy them. We've got people in Britain who love a nice new pair of shoes. India should be thanking Britain for actually saving them from a parasite that had been feasting on them for hundreds of years. And enslaving their young. Like, you don't have to go and do the whole history, you know. I'll tell you what, watch Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and it'd be a matter of, what do we see? A village that was reasonably defenceless, agricultural, minding their own business and generally trading friendly with their neighbours, is attacked by a gang of armed marauders who've stolen everything of value, raped the women, killed the men, and stolen the children. As to the only people who are left are traumatised women and old men. And he lands from the sky, and in their most desperate moment comes amongst them a white man speaking their language. So it's Dune again, isn't it? Could he be Muad'Dib? And they've got nothing left, so it's a matter of traumatised, throw the mythology at him, go to Pankot Palace. That's where he came from. And it be, finds the escaped boy who comes back with the rag, Shankara. All mythology. When they're desperate and they're broken and they're superstitious, they all reach for their religion. The only place they can go in their imagination where there's any hope. Indy gets an elephant, turns up there, and actually discovers what looks a lot like a sex cult, like a gay thing, like with a lot of shit going on as to they're using drugs. That's not some kind of religious fervour that those people are in. It's they'll make you drink the blood of the Kali, and they're all superstitious, and it's just hardcore wallop, boom, opiates, boom. It's like they were in the drugs business. And they had some proper fruity bloke who was like a bureaucrat who they'd brought in, because obviously he's got access to all these little boys that they've been kidnapping. And how are they, what are the sources of the imaginary power? Well, these ancient mythical stones have been found, and it be seen as these are magic. These are like, when, as Indy says, there's no legend about them. So it's like, these are like amber with diamonds infused into them, with one of them or two of them carrying magnetizable material, and one of them possibly being having magnetic material inside them. so that they could be seen as being like anomalous stones, likely pieces of a meteorite or something like that. As to where you've got a strange combination of materials in there that are occurring in nature. As you bring them together, they light up, and it's like bringing electricity to cavemen and saying, oh this, fire on, fire on, fire off, look, fire and fire off, fire and fire, and like, that guy can make fire. He could burn us all to the ground. As to superstition, brutality, violence, keeping secrets, being made to put up with shit, being brutalised and then complaining about it, get you punished. And then you move up the chain over the years and eventually you get to do the punishing and you're like, oh, I get to do the punishing now. No more beatings for me. I get to dish them out. And what's really going on? Oh, well, the bosses are just fucking paedophiles, mate. They're just pedos. It's like you get rid of the pedos, you cut off the drug supply. It's like they're drugging these people every day, aren't they? They get them over the hump, they get them on the stuff, and then it's a matter of we can control their mood because we are putting things in their food and the like. We've got access to poppy fields and the like. But there's a little scene in there that you might miss as to a big distraction in the dinner scene, right? Is all that creepy food on the table. But the conversation they're having is there's a detachment of British soldiers out here interested in hunting down some fucking bandits. As to where the old colonel sat there and he's talking and what he's talking about, and they have a conversation with Jones as to say, oh, I've heard the odd rumour or two. Do you know anything about these like thuggies being around here? And there be an arm or an instrument of the old Mughal Empire. They'd be an old enemy for the British, as to where when the British find out, they turn up. And as you see at the end of the movie where they're out in the open, they've been dragged out into the open because they're chasing the stones and they're no longer hidden under that palace and they're out in the open, and it's a matter of that detachment of British soldiers that were made up of a British officer and a regiment of Indians. There was no hesitation from them shooting the fucking crap out of those satanic fucking paedophile fucking ass licking fucking scumbags, was there? No, they just dropped them to a fucking man, didn't they? And it'd be a matter of she runs away to get help, she finds help. How come she finds help? Well, the whole thing is in the vicinity of a certain place. They might have gone a long journey on that roller coaster, but not that far. Quite close by, there was a military detachment, I say, dispatched to deal with reports they'd been getting of some marauding and raiding and raping and slaving going on. And it'd be a matter of, oh, only too happy to deal with that for you. Yeah, we've seen what these guys do. You would only have to, in being a soldier, see what the likes of them do to people. And then it'd be, yeah, let's go and kill the motherfuckers. Yeah, you don't really need to feel bad about killing these pricks. Why? Look what they did. India. It's like, you've all seen a movie about India. You've all seen a movie as to what a microcosm, just an episode. I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm saying you see it with your eyes as to a reason why those like women and children away from the big cities out in the countryside, and then they maraud the way in, increase the numbers, get on a good run. Impossible to stop. Let's go raiding. Like Vikings. They don't have to cross the sea and they can go raiding in large numbers, can't they? And India had an enemy like that on the northern border. Hundreds of years. Made friends with the British. British saw what they were capable of and put them down as heathen scum. I'm not saying forces as those are sort of rising up again. No, forces like those are always can break out anywhere. All you need is someone to start some kind of dangerous cult, and eventually, as it boils its way down and shit takes itself back to the core and it finds its very essence, that's what you find. Slavery, sodomy, brutalisation, and conquest. It's like, there's been some real evil forces in the world in history, you know. And the British Empire put down the worst of them. So it's like, there are no known descendants, there will be, of the ruling class of the Mughal Empire. It's like, but can we not track them down and ask them for a fucking apology to the people of India for slaving them out? It's like, does Whoopi Goldberg think that the British went to India and then just loaded brown people onto boats and sent them to the Caribbean or something? Does she think that's true? I'm really, really curious as to what she thinks she knows about India. I want to know more. I want her to do a Netflix special telling us what she thinks she knows about India, to be apparently fuming, running roughshod over India. Now, that's the thing though. That's why we need to know what she wants to know. Because we did run roughshod over India, so to speak, when they were granted their independence. The whole place collapsed into civil war and 1 million people died. Is she talking about that, I wonder? But that's got nothing to do with slavery, has it? I put it this way as to where, if you ask me for a short version, if someone brings up like India, I can move exactly straight to the annexation and the civil war after Britain pulled out. Because it was important, you know, because it was a mistake, because Britain being there in name only mattered. It really did. The illusion of law and order, that had been an effective illusion of law and order. It's like, honour killings? Excuse me? Honour killings? Yes, it's a tradition. If this happens and this happens, the family have got the right to. It's like, huh? Really? Well, I'll hang the next man who kills his daughter. Oh, we better stop doing that then. I talk about that. I talk about how the Labour Party fucked India and created a humanitarian crisis off the scale, and created a dangerous hatred between you two neighbours that bubbles on to this day, in leaving the door open for open bloodletting and then therefore open vengeance and hatred. What a fucking catastrophe. Thanks, Labour Party. We can no longer afford the empire. Nonsense. Nonsense. I talk about that, and you talk about that, but unfortunately, to conflate slavery in that betrayal, disingenuous to say the least. Because the slavers in India were the Mughals, not the British. I wonder what she knows that I don't know. Maybe the elite amongst them know. Maybe I know, right, a lot of bullshit from loads of different sources that I've just cobbled together into a narrative. And she knows celebrities from India who've told her the secret truth of what the British did. And we're not allowed to know that. Maybe she's right. Maybe William and Kate have got something to answer for.